You're listening to First Paso. Because sometimes you simply need someone to help you take that first paso. Hello and welcome to First Paso, a show where we learn together how to take that first paso toward becoming the best versions of ourselves. My name is Candace Olusola, and guys, it's my birthday month, okay? Now, I am an ambivert. I'm a little eye-leaning, okay? And I'm not the best at celebrating myself, hyping myself up. I have practiced over the years more so doing that like false humility thing. I also don't necessarily like inviting people to come celebrate. It's just not something I have felt comfortable doing. I love when people want to celebrate me though. Surprise me with love, please. But do it with intentionality, not just because you feel like you need to, you know? So, because this is the big 3-5, I know, right? I look like I'm 12. It's fine. I am, God help me. I'm trying to plan for myself something to do to celebrate my 35th year gift from God to me. I am excited / uncomfortable with trying this, and yet I really want to. So, friend, we just gonna have to see what happens, okay? It's probably gonna be one of those what had happened was moments, but come February 27th, hopefully I would have already done something or will be in the process of doing something very uncomfortable for me, and yet also just me facing a fear, you know? So since we're doing that these days in our seasons of transition, I might as well try this. As you can see, I'm so excited. I'm excited and uncomfortable, and I'm just going to learn how to navigate that. And that's what the big 3-5 is going to be. So with that being said, I want to address wins. How do you celebrate the wins in the middle of a big question mark called a transition? I'm glad you asked. I am very new at doing this. I really am. In the grand scheme of things, as far as my life, how it's gone, things that have passed over time since I was a kid, I am better at putting myself down than celebrating myself in general. Whether it's a small win, a big win, I often looked to very specific people in my life, and depending on their reactions, I would either be excited or not. So I'm navigating this in real time. And it's something I've also practiced in other aspects of transitions in my life in the last just handful of years. But I very much am uncomfortable intentionally trying to do this more often these days than I have before. And so I want to share this with you because I don't think we often get to talk with people about how they're celebrating the little things while they're in the middle. I don't know how many of us ask, how are you celebrating things? How are you noticing something to celebrate when you're in the middle of a thing? I don't even think to ask people that question. So I decided to ask myself this question today. And I'm realizing I actually do have some wins that I can celebrate. Now, as a life coach, I've been life coaching for a few years now. I life coach just people just living their regular day-to-day lives. And I also coach pharmacy graduates who have yet to pass their national board exams. So in coaching people, one of the things that I actually learned from my first coach was to talk about wins and things that could have gone better. We didn't call them failures, but things that we wish could have had a different outcome than maybe they did. So I've implemented that into how I coach people. When I meet with them, whether it's in a group or it's one-on-one, I want to know, have you been attentive enough to yourself to say, hey, I can actually call this thing a win? And I try to get them to say 3. You would be surprised how many people can't even come up with 3 wins from over a week or even a month since I last talked to them, which is wild. 30 days have passed and you have 0 wins. You have one, you could think only 1 win in your life. But it's also because people think of wins as having to be big, having to be, golden medal sized wins in their life, when in reality, little wins are monumental. The little wins actually culminate into big experiences and transformations in your life. I had to practice this with my first coach. And now that I do it with other people from the other side, I can see why my coach would just look at me, sometimes smile, and point out to me, so you mean you didn't recognize this as a win? And I'm going, oh, I didn't. So doing that back with other people, I get it now. I understand why he would kind of chuckle, because he's seeing way more wins in me than I was seeing in myself. I was better at discounting myself than I was at seeing the little things. And it helped me start to learn how to shift my perspective while I was in the middle of a thing. So I'll give you an example of someone that I coached and what they were struggling with, and a small win that I noticed in them. So I had this person, I don't necessarily like to say clients, because I see people, and clients feels way too businessy for me. I've used the term before, but it hasn't always sat well with me. So this person, this guy, he came to me. He's older than me. He has grown kids that are close to my age, and he was really down on himself for things that he didn't do well as a son, as a father, as a brother, and a husband. And he wished he had done better. And now he's older and he's trying to navigate his life. But he couldn't see how even requesting to have a life coach was a win. He didn't see how that conversation that he had with that one person in his life who he really struggles with setting boundaries with and being honest with and speaking his truth with was considered a win. He didn't always see when talking with a loved one that he had an estranged relationship with but wanted to rebuild, that even putting himself out there to reach out and try to show himself in a newer light than how they had known him was a small win. It took courage to do that. And pointing those things out was like, oh, I guess that is a big deal. And I've noticed that with other people that I've coached as well. And I've noticed it with my previous coach and with the person that coaches me now, ways that I'm going, oh, I didn't know that until you pointed that out. And so I want to talk about this because I want us to get better at being able to point out and validate our wins. I'm going to give you a small win that is very fresh, and it has to do with the last episode of this season. So I recorded that episode, and when I finished recording, I felt so insecure. I just wanted to delete it, pretend like it didn't happen. And of course, right after I recorded that episode, my bestie called me just to check in, and I talked to her about it. And she reminded me of what I'm doing. She reminded me of who I am. She reminded me of what I feel called to do and share in the world, which is me being me and showing other people how to be themselves organically, raw, with mistakes, with tongue ties and twisted words, and putting it out there that that's actually how people are, that we're not always polished. We don't always have the right things to say. We don't always say things the way that we want to, as smoothly as we want to, as clean and perfect as we would like. And we're as honest and sincere in all of our flubs. And that's just being human. It's part of the process. But I'm a recovering perfectionist. So I'm actually learning how to live in my humanness and telling myself it's okay, and that it's actually a win to not be so overwhelmed that it wasn't exactly like this, that I just start over. I'm going to give you an example from my childhood that I'm remembering right now in real time that shows how much of a perfectionist I was and what I'm learning to now do. I was the kid that when teachers told us that we were no longer allowed to write with pencils, we had to write with pens, I thought I was going to die. Because if I make a mistake, what I don't want to do is see the crossed out lines or me scribble things out. I hated that. I actually kind of hate it now. So I use erasable pens now. So I can erase it and then write it the way I want to. Yes, I will use regular pens. Yes, I will cross out. I'm not a fan of it, but I will do it, and I can actually move on versus throwing the whole paper away and starting over, which is what I was feeling like doing when I was a kid, and just feeling like nails on a chalkboard when the teacher would just say, nope, just write a line and move on. Ugh, hated it. Blech. But I did it. And I preferred a pencil. I liked being able to erase and pretend like the mistakes never happened. And I taught myself to even do that in real life, where I would tell people, oh, you know what? Let's just pretend I never brought that up, since it was like awkward or uncomfortable or made you feel a way that I didn't want you to feel. Let's just pretend like it didn't happen. Let's rewind that tape and tape over it with some things, and no one would ever know it ever happened. And now I'm like asking you basically to pretend and play a role that we both know happened. And now going, you know what? That happened. Oh my goodness, that happened. I'm uncomfortable and it happened. And moving on, learning how to move on and telling myself it's okay is actually a small win. The fact that I posted last week's episode instead of re-recording it, starting all over, is a win for me. I want to do what's set before me really well. And I'm sure you feel the same way. I'm sure there's things in your transition and multitude of layers of transitions, like we talked about before, that you want to do well. which is also why we often get into that space of, I need to know every single step. I need to know the sub steps for the big steps. And then I need to know at what time, in what capacity, at how much weight. Like, I need to know all the details. So then once I look at the full blueprint, I can study it really well, practice, watch, rinse, repeat, and then like do the thing. Perfection, Simone Biles, nailed it. Like, that's how we want to live life. And reality is, that's not reality. I was talking to Jono recently, and I was telling her about how it's so easy to want all the light, like the light for all the steps, illuminate everything. I want to see everything. But we think that actually takes us where we want to go. And in reality, it ends up being a hindrance. So when we get to the other side, we feel empty. We feel like it wasn't exactly what we thought. We actually don't feel as prepared because we kind of just took a blueprint, studied it, memorized it, and moved on. But when we have a goal and we're focused on the goal, we have the darkness from where we're standing and the goal. We don't really know what's in the middle, and we may have this small light. For me, that's talking to Jesus about it. Like, Lord, I can't see any other step but you, so I'm just going to keep talking to you, and I'm sure you will order my steps in your word. Like, that's what I do. And I talk to friends, and I talk to mentors and family and trusted people, my community, right? And I just try to navigate as best as I can. But I actually, by the time I get to this opening at the end of a tunnel or promised land, if you will, the foundation of what I had to navigate in those lit but also dark, because I can't see every single step leading to that promised land. All those steps, like, I feel more grounded. Like, I worked for that thing. That thing worked me for that thing. Okay. So that is a win. Even when it's like, oh, I tripped, but I learned that lesson. I learned, the fact that I learned it is a win, versus wanting to pretend that the trip didn't happen, or wanting to disregard that it happened, and I want to like bunt the blame on something else or someone else instead of taking ownership, or just calling it a flop. Like, it's no one there to blame. It's just what it is. But I learned something. That's a small win. I want to take that. Some small wins right now in my life are responding to certain people in my life who naturally have been irritating, and I'm choosing to now just be calm in the moment and figure myself out later, so I can just be respectable and kind versus petty and placing my annoyance back at them. Another small win in my life. Trying to lean into how my body looks and being open and honest when I can sense that my mind wants to go in a self-destructive route, and actually telling someone, usually my best friend or other friends that I have talked to about this, hey, I'm sensing that because I feel uncomfortable right now, I want to beat myself up for it and be unkind. And I want to let you know, so in case you hear me say something that sounds something like this, or this, you'll know, hey, Candace, you don't talk to yourself like that anymore, remember? admitting that and requesting for assistance and accountability in the case I do a Freudian slip or I actively choose to do it is a small win for me. Another small win for me is starting this season because listen, oh my God, today, 18-month hiatus was not the plan. But to just all of a sudden decide in a season where I was still trying to figure myself out, felt like I wanted to do a lot more self-reflection and prayer and all this stuff. And I ended up just going, you know what? Let me just go ahead and start this thing. And I did it. That was a small win. And it was done through a mic check. And I just went ahead and did it on the fly. And that was my first episode of the season. And here we are, still in the season, knocking these things out. Small win. There are so many small wins that we're missing in our life because we're so focused on the negative. We choose not to see and account things as great, as good, as trying. Trying is good. That's a win. Doing our best, that's a win. Doing our better is a win. I've never said that in my life. But doing our better, because we're not sure if it's the best sometimes. But we're trying, and I think it was better than what I was doing before, which I guess is my best for today. But I'm sure there's more best and more better in me. But I'm going to count the better I did as better. I was more honest this time with this person. I was accountable this time, even though I felt completely uncomfortable and I hated that. I actually said the thing I never choose to say because I'm afraid of how they're going to respond. That's a small win. That might be a big win. And that's also the thing about wins in the middle of transitions. You're going to call something a win and someone else can look at it and be like, and that's not a big deal. We can't compare our wins with each other, especially in transitions, but honestly, never. We really just can't compare because our skills are not the same. We may all be human, and that in and of itself is like an overarching similar scale, but the details within our humanness, relative. We just cannot equate one person's weight to another. And we talked about this last week as well. So being in your season of transition and all the layers of transitions that you're in, more than likely, there's going to be small wins over here and large wins over there. Maybe it might just be a plethora of small wins. Maybe it's going to be a small win in one area and a small win in another area that you wish was bigger. It doesn't matter. If it's a win, please be celebratory. Choose to celebrate your wins. Just like I'm choosing to celebrate myself for my birthday. Oh, so uncomfortable. But we're doing it. We're trying. And this is not so we can be conceited. This is not so we can be arrogant. This is not so we can learn how to do that. It's so we can learn to see that we are holistically figuring life out. We're going to flop on our face and we might not see the win right away. Sometimes it takes reflecting back over periods of time for us to go, that was actually a win. And I totally missed that. Sometimes it takes someone outside of us going, did you know that was a win? I'm so proud of you. You should probably be proud of yourself too. It might take that as well. It might take a lot of those, and I mean a lot of them, before we within ourselves can go, I'm actually going to stand in this being a win. We have to go through the discomfort of not having done it before. We're going to have to go through the discomfort of doing it before, but not believing it before. Because we be faking it till we think we can make it. And sometimes we fake it and realize we're not making it. Okay? Listen. Honesty. Just be honest until you make it. Being honest is helping you make it better than faking it is helping you make it. So be honest. It was hard today. It might be harder tomorrow because this is not linear. It's not exponential. This is zigzag, swirly, whirly, and everything in between until you get there. And then you're going to see a net growth over time. What time? I don't know. Oh, I'm not Jesus. I can't dictate that for you. And you can't dictate that for yourself either. But keep going. Look for those wins. Be honest about the flops, the failures. And know that the lessons that you choose to learn, not in a self-deprecating and degrading way, because that's not helpful, speaking to myself as well, but in a, as painful as that was, I see it, I receive it, I'm going to learn from it. Count those wins too. Count those wins. You don't need to see every single detail, every single step, and nail it like a Simone Biles to be a winner. You don't. You can just receive those wins and know that the wins, I know I just said it, but what I mean in being a winner is the net win. You're winning already for trying. Flops don't make you a loser. Quitting makes you a loser. Not wanting to try makes you a loser. But in reality, both the wins and the losses don't take away from the intrinsic value that you have as a human being for just being here and doing your best or your better. And no, doing your best or your better doesn't mean it's automatically going to result in something great, but it's going to result. And what do you do with that result is up to you. What I do with my results are up to me. So I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm evolving, and I hope you're doing the same. I hope that this is helpful. I hope that the more I share things that I'm going through, that maybe it'll help you figure out things that you're going through. And I hope that you have people that you can talk to figure this out. This has really been a cheat code for me. And I feel like I'm going to keep saying this. Just because it's a season of transition does not mean you have to do it by yourself. Yes, there are moments where we actually have things that we need to do on our own, but it doesn't mean we're by ourselves. We have support. We have people praying for us. We have people cheering us on. We have people to speak into us that can't do our work, right? And of course, there's always Jesus. There's Holy Spirit. There's God. You can always pray to the Father, pray and ask for Jesus to keep interceding for you. And you can request for the Holy Spirit, who is our helper. He is our friend. He is our comforter. He is our advocate who lives inside of us, just like Jesus lives inside of us. If we obviously choose for him to, they're there to help. So we're really not alone, but there are things that are in our possession to navigate and figure out, even if it's the things that were impressed upon us, they were placed on us. It is our responsibility to figure those things out, fortunately and unfortunately. And that's just how life goes. So if you're listening to this episode and you're using it to navigate an aspect of your life, and if you're listening to other podcasts and watching sermons, reading books, having conversations with people that are real, these are all wins. Big, small, medium, everything in between. They're all wins. Wins don't have to mean something is complete. Wins can be things that are in progress. So you're doing a great job. You're trying. And I'm actually really proud of you. I'm proud of us. Let's be real. I'm actually proud of us. This is not easy. This is what the expedited route looks like. When I say expedited, I mean having someone to go through this with somehow just makes it easier. Just like time. Time, everyone has the same time. But there's sometimes that time doesn't seem to time like time is supposed to time, if you know what I'm saying. It moves faster than it seems to. It moves slower. And having people within your time windows, with the wrong people, it can feel like way too long. And with the right people, it can seem way too fast. That's what navigating life should be like. When you have the right people in your corner, things feel like they're going faster. Even when they feel just as hard, there's something about having someone in your corner to remind you that they see wins as an external voice. So when your internal voice wants to counteract that and push it away and push and push and push and push, and I don't want to hear it, I don't believe it, even though I want to believe it, I'm fighting to believe it, and how I've thought of myself for so long makes me struggle to receive this and believe this and claim it for what it is. It actually makes things go faster. Try it. You might like it. And if that person is me, I love that. And if you need a life coach, I'd love to coach you. I have groups and I do one-on-one. I have all that information in the description box below. And that's just something I would love to do. And I do free consultations as well, if you just need to talk for a few minutes. So I'd just love to help in any way. That's my desire. My desire is to see us all do better, to see us grow, and not just grow, but to embrace our whole selves. And our whole selves is evolving. A seed is just as whole as its tree form. It's whole. It's complete. And in every stage of our growing, I want us to accept that, enjoy it, learn to love it and lean into it. And I hope that when our purpose is presented to us, that instead of running from it, that we actually embrace it wholly. That when we see it, we actually see that it is what it is. And even if we're scared, to go for it. And that allows us to live free. Free to try, free to fail, free to succeed, free to grow, free to question, free to do a lot of things. Free to be messy, as Miss Frizzle would probably say. So that's it for today's episode. If there's anything else you want to talk about, any topics, if you have any people that you want on this pod, even yourself, feel free to go and check out the information in the description box and in the show notes. Let me know, and I would love to hear from you. I would love to know what you're thinking, what you're feeling. Share your thoughts in the comment section on YouTube, in Spotify, Apple, whatever you listen to this or watch this episode on my social media. I want to make sure that we are going on this journey as a community together, because sometimes you simply need someone to help you take that first paso. So until next week, love you guys. Take care. Please stay safe. God bless and besitos. I'll talk soon. Bye.